Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Fabulous. Great. So to reiterate, we call the meeting to order at 7:30. We're doing roll call. George Bennington.
Here.
Thank you. Jean Goodman.
Here.
Jake Granito.
Here.
Hank Green.
Here.
Steve Haberstroh.
Present.
Jack Hawkins.
Here.
Thank you. Matt Conspor.
Here.
Thank you. Carl Mason.
Yep.
Thank you. Keith Ritchie.
Here.
Fabulous. And Francesca Sagalis.
I'm here. I'm
All right,
having a
great.
hard time making Tiger a host. It's a co-host. It's not allowing me to.
Let me try.
Okay.
Great. First of all, I just wanted to welcome Keith Ritchie, his first meeting here with the Park and Rec Commission. So Keith, welcome. Second of all, Kevin, I don't know if you want to go first and stay on the call or end of the agenda. What do you prefer?
If you want to go ahead now, Ron, and do the election, I'll be happy to do that.
Sure. So I think, Kevin, the last time we did this was with Sally. So I think you asked if there were any recommendations for chair.
All right, I'll conduct the election. Good evening, all Parks and Rec Commissioners. Good to see you all. Happy New Year. So the order of business is to first ask for nominations for chair and for the ensuing year. Do I have a nomination for chair?
I'd like to nominate Rana reappointed.
Do I have a second? Carl,
Yes.
are there further nominations for chair?
I would like to nominate George Bennington for chair.
Do I have a second?
Jack Hawkins here.
Jack Hawkins. I would call it, I guess, the way this is not a hybrid meeting, this is a virtual meeting entirely, right, Tucker? So we have to call the roll on a virtual hybrid meeting. So why don't we do it alphabetically? I can't do it alphabetically. Why don't I just start from the top? Francesca?
Rana.
Keith?
George.
Matt?
Rana.
Jake?
George.
Jack?
As it was, George.
Steve?
George.
Hank?
Ron Siegel.
Keith? No, I'm sorry, Carl?
No.
And that leaves George and George?
George.
Jean?
George,
And Rana.
Rana.
Okay, anybody keep track of that? Tucker?
Looks like if just someone please confirm. I had 5 in favor of Rana, 6 in favor of George. Is that correct?
That's what I had.
That's what I had.
Okay. Congratulations, George. Rana, I want to thank you for a terrific couple of years of service. As we talked about earlier today, we'd like to have you remain a partner with George for the ensuing year. And I would now take nominations for secretary.
I would nominate Francesca, if you're interested, Francesca.
I am. Thank you.
Second,
I'll second.
any further nominations for secretary? Hearing none. We can do this unanimously without a roll call. So why don't you raise hands, and if we have a unanimous vote, it'll be unanimous. I see everyone's hand, except I can't see, Jake is on now by, hard to see the screen. I believe that's unanimous.
It is. Yep. His hand's up.
So congratulations, Francesca. Thank you for
Thank you.
serving. I want to
Thank
thank all you members of the Parks and Recreation Commission for serving. We have an important agenda coming up this year, and I look forward to all your continued service. Thank you. I'll stay on for a while, Ronna. Thank you.
Okay, you bet. Congratulations, George. And of course, I'll stay on through the end of the year here. Anything I can do to help.
Thank you. And just a quick comment. Thank you, Ronna, for your fantastic service. And I look forward to working with you in the year ahead too. And if you can obviously conduct this meeting, tonight's meeting, that would be great.
You got it. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ronna, I'm going to just second what George said. You have been exceptional, just exceptional in terms of your commitment, the time you've put in, your mastery of the issues. And on behalf of the town, thank you.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. All right. Our next item up is to approve the meeting minutes from our previous meeting from December 8th of 21. Give everyone a second to review if you haven't already, and then I'll wait for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve minutes.
Thank you. That was Francesca. And second, I'm sorry, say it again.
Me.
George Bennington was second. If there is no one opposed, if it's unanimous, we don't have to do a roll call. May I see a show of hands for approved?
I want to recluse myself. I wasn't there.
Perfect. Makes sense. Thank you for that, Keith. That was everyone except Keith B.
And except Carl, I was absent for December.
There you have it. Those two. Thank you, Carl. All right, our next item up is very exciting. Waveney Park Cub Scout Pack 7 is looking to do a recruitment event. And I believe Sean is here. Thank you. I see you, Sean. Thank you. I'm going to, you can unmute if you'd like. And I believe I have a document open for you. If you'd like me to pull that up.
Yes, please. I'm not sure what document it is, but.
Actually, that's the next project. We're good. That's the town fishing promotion. You're good. Go ahead, Alex.
Or Sean.
Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Yeah.
Apologies. Go ahead.
So I have some prepared remarks, so I'm just figured I'd just run with them. They're going to take a few minutes, and then we can go into a dialogue. So good evening, Parks and Recreation Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. My name is Sean Gelson. I'm an 11-year New Canaan resident, an adult leader of local pack number 7, to which my 2 sons belong as Cubs. And since last month, the town coordinator, which assists membership initiatives across the scouting units in New Canaan, all scouting units, Cubs, Scouts, and BSA troops alike. Permit me to mention that I got involved in scouting because of my boys and what it means to them, but I've gotten more deeply involved in scouting for what it means to our community. What this program does for youth on the generous gift of volunteers' time and energy is just remarkable. Building confidence, teaching skills, developing leadership, exposing youth to new things, and fostering friendships are all among the fruitful functions of scouting. But importantly, it also serves to build character and good values. A recent Tough study supports this. I'm happy to share it with you after the meeting. Scouts are all about being good citizens, serving the community, and this is evidenced by the countless Eagle Scout projects throughout town and countless other cities and towns across the nation. And investment in scouting is certainly an investment in the generations of the future, but I would say it's also an investment in the communities of today. So with those considerations in mind, I applaud the commission's choice to give scouting a voice at this evening, at this meeting. The purpose of my visit to this forum is to seek, on behalf of the Cub Scouts, the commission's approval for the Rockets and Ice Cream event to be held again at Waveney Park, but with expanded scale. I'll explain what that means after providing an overview of the event. The Rockets and Ice Cream Social, traditionally hosted in June, is a celebration of the pending arrival of summer with, as its straightforward title gives away, model rocket launches and refreshing ice cream served. It was created by Pack 7 as a recruitment activity some years ago and has since become a jointly hosted event with PAC 70 and PAC 45 involved as well. Some bullet points. June 7th is a targeted date for this year's event. Steve Banco says that date is open. Location, Waveney Park, specifically the southern clearing near the far end of the golf driving range. Open to the public, free of charge, gathering at 6, launches starting at 6:30, event finishes at 7:30. It's staffed by adult volunteers who manage the rocket assembly, launches, and recoveries. 45 to 60 launches expected with a fleet of 15 to 20 cardboard and plastic Estes rockets, maxing out at C caliber engines. Strict adherence to the safety code of the National Association of Rocketry to keep attenders safe. 3 launch pads set up behind a caution tape barrier mounted on plow stakes, minimum 15 feet as per specs between pad and perimeter, from the pad to, as well as from the pad to the packing stations, which are also behind the barrier. And then lastly, check-in tables and promotional booths, ice cream stations are situated north of the launch range facing the arrivers. Why is rockets and ice cream so important? Because it is hands down the most effective recruitment mechanism the New Canaan Scouts have presently. In a typical year, between 15 and 25 youths who attend the event end up joining Cub Scouts, offsetting most, if not all, of the annual attrition resulting from the 5th graders crossing over to the BSA, formerly known as Boy Scouts. Why the push for the expanded capacity? First of all, 2022 is not a typical year. PAC 7 alone will lose nearly 1/3 of its roster, with its biggest den being the one that crosses over this year. Secondly, PAC 45 still needs to ramp up from its current count of 20 members to a more critical mass. Thirdly, we aim to reverse some of the past decades' membership losses townwide, mostly brought on by the departure of the Latter-day Saints PAC. And lastly, beyond the registering of new members in and of itself, this event can elevate the general awareness, image, and appeal of scouting in our town. What kind of expansion are we talking about? As a point of reference, last year we had over 200 attenders, of which 50 were prospective Cubs and their parents. We had 20 conversions. This year, we would envision 300 attenders, 150 prospects, and 40 conversions. That kind of result would be superb for the scouting program, because it would lift the program out of attrition into growth. It would put it on an upward trajectory that it deserves, but which the community also deserves. So in closing, I encourage the commission to open the door to an expanded Rockets and Ice Cream event, and in turn, a bigger and brighter future for scouting in New Canaan, and all the rewards, direct and indirect, that the wonderful community will reap in consequence. The one thing I forgot to mention is our Cub Master, Keith Laska, is also on the call, and he will participate in the conversation. So thank you for listening to prepared remarks. I welcome your thoughts and your questions.
Sean, just to recap, you're looking for June 7th, 6 to 7:30, so an hour and a half event, correct?
That's right.
And that I added up, are you 490 potential guests expected, 300 plus the 150 plus the 40?
No, those are inclusive. So the 300 is the total attendance. The 150 is what we would consider non-members, prospects for us. So it would be 300 attenders in total.
And John, I know you're on the call. John Howe, any issues with the rocket assembly or the grass, or where they're thinking of holding this event? And I'm also thinking ahead for parking.
Parking would have to be up in the parking lot, but as far as any damage or anything like that down at the driving range in that area, that will be fine.
Great. Any other questions from the commission for either Keith or Sean? Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, there's really no conflict. John Howe, or I don't see Steve here, but there's no conflict at all really with increasing this, right? There's no issues with increasing the numbers, right?
No issues that I see. It's a wide open area. There'll be enough room. It won't be like they'll be stepping up under the launch pad or anything like that. So I don't see any problems.
Yeah, I don't. All right, thank you. Thank you, John.
And B, have we confirmed there's not a wedding on the back patio that evening?
I'd have to check. I don't know, since there was some discussion with Steve, I'm sure he's probably checked, but I'll have to confirm.
Okay.
It is a
Great.
Tuesday.
Okay.
The
That's
other thing
good
I
to
would
know.
ask, the other thing I was
Okay, so-
asked is,
Yeah, it wouldn't be a problem on a Tuesday.
Excellent. Great. I don't see any other hands from commission members. All right. Would anyone, Jack, go ahead. Question?
Yes, I just wanted to give Sean an opportunity to finish what he was saying there.
oh, we would also be interested in a rain date, or a high wind date, because we don't want to have the event if it's too windy, because then the rockets could blow out of the launch area. So I guess if the commission's in conceptually approving of the event, then I can work with B on available dates.
Good point. Great. Thank you, Sean. Steve Dayton?
Yeah, there will be softball up in the upper parking lots, probably men's and girls softball. Just take that into account, if we have enough parking or not. So.
Thank you, Steve.
If it's 300 attenders, I would imagine that would be around 100 cars for people attending the event.
Great, thank you. All right, I see no other hands from commissioners for questions. Do I have a motion to approve the use of the golf area on June 7th from 6 to 7:30 for the rocket and ice cream event for the Cub Scout Pack 7? Jack Hawkins has his hand up. Thank you, Jack. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Can you just tell me who that was? It said that so
was
quickly.
Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
New guy.
And is there anyone opposed? I see no hands. So if I could just see a show of hands for a unanimous vote. I see all hands. Perfect. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Sean. That was put through. I would just ask you to work directly with B and Steve on a rain date that works for them. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Congrats to you and Keith.
Commission.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yep, the scouts, thank you. That's terrific.
Great, congrats. All right, next item up, more good news, Town Fishing Promotion Project. Alex Werner, you are up. And I will pull up your slideshow.
Great, thank you.
And feel free to tell me when you'd like to move forward. I'll put you back at the beginning.
Okay, will do. Thank you. So before I start, I'd like to thank you all for your time today and the work you do for this town. It means a lot to a lot of people, so thank you for that. I'm a very passionate fisherman. I always have been. And since I started my scouting career, I knew that I wanted my project to focus on fishing. Next, please. The goal of my project is to improve three things: the conservation, education, and recreation in this town through fishing. I chose Mill Pond as the prime spot for my project because of its size. I think it has a lot of potential to be a good fishing spot. There are a lot of good access points around the pond, and there's also parking there. So there are three elements to my project. The first one is building structure as a habitat for fish, and I'll go into all of these in a second. Second one is constructing an informational kiosk or sign. And then the third one is assisting with the town fishing derby, if there is one. I also have an alternate idea if that's not happening. Next, please. So the structures. The purpose of the structures is to provide a habitat for the fish, but also contributes to the environment. So algae grows on it, and smaller fish feed on algae, and then larger fish can feed on the smaller fish. And then fish also can find refuge from any predators in the structures, which obviously would increase their lifespan. And then when it comes time in the spring, it can also act as spawning grounds for the fish. And to break the structure down, the materials, this is per structure. So 1 5-gallon bucket, just like your standard like Home Depot one. PVC pipes. So I plan to have one. My structures would look a lot like the top picture. So one large vertical PVC pipe stuck into the bucket with cement, and then some smaller ones going into the larger one, and then some black tubes, or just some plastic tubes coming out. And I plan to make about 6 to 8 depending on the funds that I have and where we would like to place them in the pond. They'll be completely submerged, so it won't disrupt the scenery of the pond. And then I chose PVC as my material as opposed to wood, because the lures bounce off of it, which it contributes a lot to the well-being of the pond, because if you were to get your lure stuck on the PVC pipes, you would eventually end up cutting your line. The fisherman would end up cutting his line off, and then the line would end up in the pond, and that's just really bad for all the animals in it, and all the fish, and the scenery too. It's litter. So next slide, please. So the next element would be the kiosk or the sign. It would be able to, this idea was partly inspired by the kiosk at the Pound Ridge Town Park Pond. My father and I went fishing there a few months ago, and it added a really nice touch to the pond. And the benefit would be that it would be able to display information about the fish and the environment, also promote principles of conservation, such as catch and release, which obviously do a good amount for the well-being of the pond. And then anything else the Parks and Rec Department would like to display in there, you guys would have access to it. So probably through like a lock and key. If you ever needed to like promote any events or activities or laws through that, then you could do that. It would likely have a plywood backing, so you could just pin stuff on, and then a fiberglass, and it'd be attached through hinges. And then any fishing regulations that are vital to follow. The benefit of a kiosk is that the information can be easily replaced, which keeps it relevant. And then the other option would be a sign, like if you could go back, like the bottom picture, that would probably be better in terms of like you don't want a big, when you're at the pond, you don't want a big like chunky thing you're looking at when you're trying to enjoy the beauty of the pond. But so the sign would be a little bit lower, but I feel like the kiosk would be better. That would be ultimately up to you guys, but I would probably prefer to do a kiosk. Next, please. Next slide. And then the third element, and the interactive activity. So are you guys holding a fishing derby this year? Do you know?
Hasn't been decided yet.
No. Okay. So if you are going to, then I would recruit, there are other fishermen scouts in my troop, who would certainly be willing to help out at the fishing derby. So we would gladly help and offer assistance to any kids who are interested or need help. And if not, then I would likely organize this a small one-day event, and kind of have the same thing, but for any residents interested, or also recruit Cub Scouts too. but that'll be decided later. And then for fundraising, I feel like I have a good plan for funds. Raised mostly through, or basically all through donations. Hardware stores such as Home Depot, Lowe's, and Rings End have been known to give like $100 gift cards or more for materials for other Boy Scouts, Scouts working on the Eagle projects in our troop. Another way I'd be looking for materials would be any discarded materials that they're not using with any deformity. So obviously it would have to be in shape to a certain extent, but that would be a good way to conserve and save some materials from just being thrown out. I could use them in my project because the fish don't really care about straight PVC pipes. And then yeah, for fundraising, there are just other Bass Pro Shops and Orvis have donated. And then, also I was going to talk about a GoFundMe page. Those have been crowdfunding through other people who are passionate about the same thing, has worked pretty well in the past 2 for Boy Scouts. So there's that. Why is fishing important? So like I said, I've been a fisherman for a long time, and it is a lifelong hobby that can be pursued as much or as little as anybody would want to. Yet it proves to be enjoyable in any case, as long as you're catching fish, of course. It's inclusive of all people and does not discriminate. People of all skill levels can enjoy. So whether you're a beginner or a professional, it proves to be enjoyable. And it also gets people in outdoors, gets them fresh air. And the more they do it, the more connected they feel with the environment, and the more they feel the need to do their part and contribute back to the preservation of the environment. And then it also gives us a relaxing break from the stressors of life, puts us in nature. Last things to discuss, I'll be doing all the constructing with the help of my fellow Boy Scouts. And then one thing to consider would be placing the structures in the pond. Mr. Howe has offered a rowboat for that, so I'd probably do that without the Scouts, just for safety reasons. And then other things to consider are the exact location of the exact location of the structures in the pond, and exact location of the kiosk, because you want the kiosk or sign to be noticeable, but obviously not in the way. So that's something to consider. I don't believe I need any permits. I just got confirmation on that yesterday. And then if this didn't seem like a good location for you guys, then Mead Pond would also be a good alternate site. And that's it. Any questions?
Steve Haberstraw and then Hank, I think, and then Francesca. Go ahead, Steve.
As an avid fisherman, thank you for the presentation. I think it was great. Anybody at the town, or perhaps you've already looked into it, how deep does the pond get? And is there any risk that if water levels get low, these structures will be visible, or could be an issue for any kind of waterfowl or anything?
I don't know the exact depths of the pond. I don't know if anyone does, but that would be definitely helpful to look at. My father and I visited the pond the other day, and it seemed deep enough in certain areas. And the structures will probably be about like 5 to probably 7 feet, maybe a little bit more. But
the pond has adequate depth, Steve.
Who was next? Was it Hank?
Hank, you're next.
Yeah, first of all, Alex, this is a really thoughtful and well put together presentation. Thank you. This is terrific. Two questions. One is just my ignorance. How does the pond get stocked with fish, or does it not need to be?
I don't believe it is, but I think there are certainly fish in there already.
Sorry, Alex, we stock it annually. It's a joint venture between the Highway Department, Parks Department, Recreation, and the Police Benevolent Association.
Okay.
The police donate some funds, and then we get people who donate some funds every year. And we put fish in the pond and then fish up the stream as well, up the river. And then we give the residents up the river feed, so that they'll actually feed the fish, so that they'll stay inside the river as well and not migrate back down again. But so it's stocked annually.
Tiger, while you're on, is there any reason, Alex had mentioned, Mead Pond. Is there any reason Mead Pond would be better or worse than Mill Pond?
We think they're both great locations. They serve different fish. Mill is on more of a trout pond, and Mead, since it gets warm, is more of a bass and say sunfish. So they would be served well in both ponds. So if we can get a couple extra, we'd love to do both.
Would Mead Pond have the same depth situation?
Yeah, Mead is actually a little bit deeper.
Oh, okay.
My final question, Alex, is what is your proposed timing on this?
In terms of, I plan to start the physical labor around early to mid March, and then I hope to be done by early April. Done with my
Thank you. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Hi, Alex. I reiterate what these others have said. I think this is a wonderful idea to get fishing going in town. My question is the lifespan of these structures that you're building with, PVC. How long are they going to be down there? How many years before they have to be pulled up? And if they don't have to be pulled up, is that going to be garbage that's then going to be added to? I kind of want to get a handle on what the maintenance and future will look like.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention, another reason I chose PVC was that it's very durable and long lasting. So hopefully that wouldn't be a concern for a long time, as long as it.
But you don't know what the lifespan would be of one of these structures.
I would say upwards
15, 20.
At least, if not longer. If it was adequately constructed, the concrete's not going to wear away, and the PVC certainly won't. So it'll be fine for 20 years or more.
Okay. And then secondly, drawing fishermen to these ponds, that's going to have, line and hooks and floats. And I guess they don't use lead weights anymore, but all that tackle stuff can pose a problem. And I'm wondering if there's any kind of thoughts for how we would keep the ponds clean of that and the shorelines.
Yeah, this may only go so far, but like I said in the kiosk, we could certainly promote keeping it clean, picking up after yourself.
Well, can I intrude there, Alex? I mean,
yeah.
If that pond is being stocked already, don't we already have the issue of all the fishing gear that's used in there? I mean, and because it is stocked already, so I think it kind of addresses Francesca's question, but what I was wondering is, since it is being stocked already, this project will just kind of enhance the growth of young fish and make it so perhaps there'll be less stocking required in the future. Is that really the objective here?
Yeah.
To make it more of a natural growth cycle?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be self-perpetuating. Probably will never be self-perpetuating, only because people keep taking fish out. That's the reason why we have to continue to stock. It's not a question. And then during heavy rain events, some of them actually, when we open up the spillway, some flow downstream as well. They get caught and flow out. But this would definitely enhance the pond, both ponds, if we use it in both ponds. And then potentially allow, in the event that it became all catch and release, we might not ever have to stock it again, because this project would help be a self-feeding device for it, right? Give habitat for small fish, and then they'll grow into big ones. So
I would also be willing to make a few extra structures if need be, and put them in both ponds.
that'd be great.
And then, are you guys okay with a kiosk too, instead of a sign?
That's up to the commission, but as far as DPW goes, we prefer the kiosk. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Carl's hand is up.
Yep. I've been involved in a couple of river cleanups on the Mill River, and it's quite astounding how much you can pull out of that river. I mean, it's quite a short river. But I think given the fact that it's the Smith Ridge, it just there's an awful lot of bottles that get in there, just plastic bags and the like. My concern with having these structures is they're going to kind of snare and snag a lot of these things as they come from Mill River and through into the pond. I mean, are we going to be able to go in and clean that up on a regular basis? Is John's rowboat available to us in order to maybe have an annual cleanup those structures in the middle of the pond? Because that would be a concern that I would have with the trash that I've seen in that pond in the past.
I think for the most part, once you put it in the pond, it's in the pond. So I'm sure there's a way, like you're saying you're concerned about the trash getting caught on the structure.
Getting caught in that as something just to kind of like for the trash to kind of collect within those structures and just kind of sit there and get snared within that. Can we go in and clean that?
You know what I think we do is when the structures are put in place, we'll mark their locations, and then we can go in with a long pole and be able to wiggle anything that's off them. I don't think it's something where we're going to need to be pulling the structures out or anything like that.
Right.
So I don't think it will be, that's something we can easily do once a year type thing.
We also do maintenance. Yeah, we do maintenance dredging on the pond once a year. So we have to draw it down already. And when we built the pond, or when we dredged the pond back in 8, 9, we actually did put structures in as well. Part of the whole plan was to have some structures in there. So we have 2 or 3 structures already. Some are for catfish, some are for other fish, and these will just enhance it. So when we draw down the pond, we haven't seen a problem with the other structures. I don't see a problem with these either.
Can I ask a question, Tiger? Because you're mentioning the structures. I'm not a fisherman, but I have some friends in Trout Unlimited. And I know they have used some of the Christmas trees that were unsold from some of our past, fundraising efforts to line streams in Connecticut. And I thought that was kind of like as a nursery for young fish. Has that sort of thing been considered for this pond?
Yeah, except for the fact that usually those are in streams. And so as they break down, and they'll wash away, here we're actually going to be putting them in and having them stay. So they'll continue to stay inside the pond. There's no, way for them to float out. So we'd rather, work with something, in this case, I'd rather work with something a little bit more mechanical or man-made that will last and not break down.
Makes sense. Okay, thanks.
No, thank you.
I just have a quick comment for Alex. Your fundraising, there's an organization called Sustainable Connecticut, which will offer matching grants for this type of program for anything that is going to be helping the local environment. So you may want to look to that organization, Sustainable Connecticut. They may be able to help you with your fundraising goals.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mason.
And Alex, also, as far as the kiosk goes, we might have something that's already built that we used for another event a few years ago that might be appropriate for you rather than having to recreate one. So I'll connect with you on that and you can come take a look at it.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Hank.
Alex, when we vote tonight on this, are we just voting really on the structure and the kiosk? or are we voting on the event that you also were talking about?
The whole project, but the main part would be the kiosk in the structures. The activity to the recruitment activity would just be to bring everything together, but that would be more like icing on the cake.
We're hopeful that we're going to have the Derby this year, so that can act as his event, as he mentioned. So, you know,
Yeah.
we're hopeful that, you know, people want to be outside. It's a question of just holding the Derby itself. We postponed last year, and this year I think we're just going to have it.
Great.
I just wanted to throw out there, and it's bigger than a kiosk, but we have dilapidated, falling apart kiosk behind Lapham that we're trying to figure out what to do with. I wonder if that could be refurbished and somehow used.
Maybe it's a possibility. I have to check it out first.
Okay. Tiger, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep. Yeah. So
Do you think that would work, or is that too big?
I think it's probably bigger than he needs, and I think the one that Tucker was talking about, or one that he would like to construct himself, is probably more in keeping with the spirit of the event, right, or of his project, right? It's about the community service, not necessarily about giving him the stuff just to put in. So
Okay. All right. Thanks.
thank you.
Do we have any other questions from commission members? I don't see any hands. So Alex, thank you for your presentation. Do we have a motion to approve the town fishing promotion project that Alex will put together, raise the funds in Mill Pond with what was described in his PowerPoint presentation, and just ensure that the kiosk and its location is approved by, would that be John or Banco? Forgive me, Tiger, where the kiosk would go?
Well, we usually consult with everyone at that time, so
Okay, great.
that'll be probably a 3-person. That'll be Mose, John, and Steve, since Mose runs the fishing derby. Is very
Thank you.
active at Mill, so probably all 3.
Thank you. So do we have a motion to approve Alex
Motion.
fishing project? Thank you, George. Second, I saw Steve Haberstraw's hand go up. Is there anyone who's opposed? I see no hands. All in favor? Unanimous? It is, it is. Congratulations, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Nice job.
Nice
Good
job.
job.
Great job.
Congrats.
Good luck.
All right, next item up on the agenda, Doug Zumbach is here. Doug, I know you want to talk about the 2022 Caffeine and Carburetors event. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the invitation tonight. What I'm attempting to do tonight is to get an approval from your committee for an October date for a caffeine and carburetor event in Waveny Park. There, I know, are other activities proposed. I haven't really been able to secure final dates on some of these, but the first choice I would have would be October 16th in the park. Now, there may be a track meet that day, but I've not been able to get confirmation about that. The second choice would be the 23rd, and then if that's not available, going to the 30th, the last Sunday of October. So that's what I'd like to discuss tonight.
And I know, Doug, I think a few weeks ago you had a meeting with the Special Events Committee, right?
Yes.
Just to kind of corner the last event and how we move forward with the next one. And there may be some things for the town, but specifically for the park. And I think Tucker's on tonight. Were there things that were discussed that would change the event or guidelines?
Well, Tucker, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We had a great meeting with Doug and all the different parts of the town that needed to be a part of it. came up with a list of considerations that we wanted Doug to look into going forward. The real problem that we're having with the October date right now is that because the event in Waveney Park would affect the parking lots at the high school and such, we really need their schedules to know if there's any SAT event, training going on or testing going on, that kind of thing. And we've been unable to get those dates secured. So we are having a meeting next week. The Special Events Committee is meeting next week to go over a number of events that are being proposed. And this will be one of them, and Doug's welcome to attend as he's done in the past. But right now, our biggest sort of challenge is just that we can't secure that date until we know what's happening on the surrounding properties, including the high school. Is that correct, Doug? Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that's about as much as I know. Sure. I've reached out to the high school numerous times with no responses yet.
I've reached out to them as well, and I've had several responses back, and they just said it's just too early for them to know their fall schedules.
Yeah.
Right.
Doug, would February 9th to come back in front of the commission after that special events, would that be helpful? Could you just put forth those dates knowing that you've cleared it with special events? I know it's hard, especially with the parking, and it's such a popular event. I attend it myself, and there is parking at the high school and the dog park, and it's really well attended. So I would want to make sure that you have enough room to have your event the way you want to have it, and safe for the town and for the schools. Would you be amenable to come back next month on the 9th?
I would certainly like to do it sooner. The earlier we can announce these dates, the better, because of the immense planning required for each event. Coordination with the police, sponsors, my volunteer staff, CERT, EMTs. So the earlier that I can confirm a full schedule, not just the October date, is just so much beneficial to the smooth operating of the whole 4 events. So if that's what's necessary, of course. Is that your next scheduled date?
It is, yes. There any other thoughts that, Tucker, I don't believe we could approve it then based on the approval of the Special Events Committee,
Right. The
right?
Special Events Committee does need to meet on this one. And, again, I hope even by February 9th, we would have the schedule. I know the challenges that this puts on Doug and the event, but one of the things that we came away with after that debrief was that we really need to make sure that all the areas, the surrounding properties were clear of any major events, that we didn't have any conflicts. So we're really at the mercy of the schools getting their schedule together at this point in time, unfortunately. We will do it as soon as we have that information. The Special Events Committee will meet and approve the dates if we can, if the dates. Right now, we are just waiting for the schools to give us that schedule.
And I don't want to speak for George, but could we, after your meeting, there be a special email vote? Can the commission vote by mail once since February 9th is 4 weeks out? Could we vote by email?
A quick Zoom special meeting
Sure.
to do that.
Tucker, can you be in touch with me once that special meeting happens and what the outcome is?
Sure.
Great. And then once I have that information, I can work with B to put together a special vote by proxy.
Yeah, George, we'd actually welcome you to join the meeting if you could. Rana always attended them as well, so if you could join us.
When is the next meeting date?
Was it the 19th, I think? Just look here.
Yeah, that way, Doug, I think that's accommodating if, George is willing to do that special vote and you're not
that's greatly
waiting as
appreciated.
soon as it could be. So I think that might be the best solution.
The 19th at 10 o'clock, and it's a Zoom meeting, George. And I
10
can send
o'clock?
you information.
I'm sorry, 10 a.m. or
10 a.m.
10 a.m.? Okay. It's a Zoom meeting?
It is.
Okay. If you can put me on the invite list and all the meeting passcodes, all that kind of stuff, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Carl, go ahead.
Is October 16th the equivalent weekend to the one that the last event was? Is it kind of roughly the same time?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Right.
Just as a point of, the main cross-country race is usually that week, the mid-month week. So without knowing exactly the school schedule, if you went 1 week further down, it would help with the problem with the cross-country meet.
And that's fine. I have no issues with that.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the commission? I think the best thing here, it looks like Doug, is wait for the special events committee and then, be in touch with Tucker or George and for the outcome, and then a special vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Waveny Park Conservancy. Steve Beschenstein, thank you for being so patient. I know you've been waiting. You are up next. The mic is yours.
All right. Hello, everybody. I know some of you, but not all of you. And I'm Stephen Beschenstein, the chair of the Waveney Park Conservancy. And tonight, I just wanted to provide an update on our master plan and also to ask for you to advocate for a recurring funding allocation in the PNR's capital budget. And I'll explain a little bit about what that's all about. We actually spoke with the Board of Finance last night. So I have a bit of a presentation here, and Tiger, I'll let you know, you can go to the next slide if you want to. I think you're one more. There you go. Now I thought what I would do is just to begin, I'll share a little bit of context about the park and the sort of history of the Waveney Park Conservancy and its genesis. But I think it goes without saying that Waveney Park is one of the most heavily used parks, obviously in New Canaan, but also in southern Connecticut. And there are literally, as most of you know, thousands of visitors weekly. If you look back a number of years ago, candidly, the town of New Canaan dedicated relatively few resources exclusively to maintaining the parklands of Waveny and thinking about improvements to Waveny, and that resulted in considerable deferred maintenance. Fortunately, a number of town officials, including Kevin and some others, recognized this, and they came up with the idea to form the Waveney Park Conservancy as a mechanism to focus more attention and care on the maintenance and improvement of Waveny. And specifically, the mission of the Conservancy is to act as an advocate for the parklands of Waveny, identify capital improvement and critical maintenance projects within the park, and then to help fund and to execute those projects in partnership with the town of New Canaan. And since our founding, the Conservancy, either independently or with funding collaboration from the town or garden club, has completed numerous landscaping and maintenance projects, and I'll summarize some of those in just a moment. But since our founding, we've raised approximately $2.3 million toward the revitalization of the parklands of Waveny, and we've deployed approximately $1.3 million to date. Tiger, you can go to the next slide. There it is. Thank you. This table describes sort of the major projects that we've been involved with over the past 5 years, as well as some ongoing maintenance projects. And I'll just make one update to this. When I prepared this slide, I didn't have all of the information about town contributions to some of these projects. And in fact, I just received some updated figures this morning that I wasn't able to incorporate into this presentation at that time. So to make it simple, what I'll just tell you is that figure for the town contribution, the grand total at the bottom there, is probably closer to $600,000, maybe even a little bit above that. But here's a quick summary of some of the projects we've been involved with. We've done some work in the forests and clearing some trees and invasive species in the forest. One of the large projects, which I think most of you are familiar with, is the Genium Meadow, which used to be the old cornfield in the center of Waveny Park, which before we came along was literally used as something of a dumping ground for asphalt and concrete. And that is largely restored. We still have some work to do, but it's a transformational change from what it was several years ago. Anderson Pond, which is the pond at the bottom of the sledding hill, was in danger of filling in and becoming wetlands. We, along with the town, arranged to have that dredged, and recently have installed a set of plantings around the perimeter of it. I think if anyone's seen it recently, it looks outstanding. We've been heavily involved in funding work on the trails in Waveny. We've been involved with the garden club in restoring what's called the parterre garden, which is the garden just to the left of the mansion house, the formal garden. And we're in the process of re-landscaping the front of the house. Still have some more work to do on that, but we're hoping that that will be completed by this spring. In addition, we've been involved in some maintenance projects. Some of these will be ongoing. We've installed dog waste baskets sort of throughout the park, which are emptied on a weekly basis. Genium Meadow, although it's still in the installation phase, already requires some ongoing maintenance, certain types of mowing, weed control, things of that nature. The new plantings around the Anderson Pond will also require some ongoing maintenance. And we've also run an intern program over the last several summers. The interns have helped with removing invasive species. They've helped with some wall work. So done a number of different things. That's been very well received. And then just some miscellaneous maintenance here and there. But if you add it all up so far, we've deployed about 1.3 million. And I think one of the takeaways from this slide, which I want people to focus on, is that the majority of the major improvement projects that have been undertaken over the past 5 years have really been funded primarily by private funders and benefactors. The town has made a meaningful contribution, but private actors have done the majority of the funding. Tiger, if you want to go to the next slide. And so what have we learned in the past 6 years? One is that we've had considerable success fundraising, but we anticipate that the costs for the projects that we have in our master plan, which I'll talk to in a little bit more detail soon, are likely, as well as some of the ongoing maintenance needs that we're going to have to address, are likely to exceed our ability to our fundraising capacity. Right now, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment, the master plan, which many of you have seen before, and which you should all have a copy of, estimates that if we were to undertake all of the projects foreseen in that, it could cost up to $6 million. And just to put that in a little bit of perspective, we've been able to raise approximately $380,000 a year on average. Now, we expect that to increase because we're going to be hiring an executive director shortly, and a major part of their job will be to focus on development. But I would also caution that a lot of the fundraising that we've engaged in to date has been supported by a handful of very large benefactors. And while they seem to be willing to continue to support the park several years out, there's no guarantee that the same set of funders will be there, or that some may not reprioritize where they're pointing some of their philanthropic activities. And so again, that's another reason we'd like to see a little bit more of a firm commitment from the town, because it gives us a little more certainty. Again, I think it goes without saying that town residents value Waveny very highly. This has become especially true during COVID times, where the park has been heavily utilized, as we've mentioned. And if you talk to anybody in Waveny, you hear superlatives all the time. It's a crown jewel. It's a godsend. It's been a place of critical sanctuary for us. It's an escape. People value it very, very highly. But despite the value they place on it, and despite the heavy usage of the park, town funding for Waveney Park in comparison to other town recreational assets such as the athletic fields, playgrounds, library, Bristow Sanctuary, etc., is actually extremely low. And Waveney receives almost no dedicated funding. Another learning that we've had is that while the town has partnered with us, not on a recurring basis, but on a project by project basis, and we're grateful for that, that form of financial partnering can at times be very cumbersome. It's oftentimes inefficient, and it leads to considerable uncertainty due to the capital budgeting cycle that you have to go through. And finally, a last point is that private benefactors, and I mentioned a moment ago that we have a handful who have been extraordinarily generous to the park. They seem to be willing to continue to be very generous to Waveney, but they've also expressed to us that they want to see the town have more skin in the game. And that actually was just driven home to me a couple of weeks ago when I met with Trip Killam, who's the executive director of the Genium Foundation, which is the foundation that has been the primary funder for the Genium Meadow restoration. And he actually just announced to me that he's willing to, in this coming year, provide another $110,000 to the Waveney Park Conservancy. But he said, we want to continue to see the town have skin in the game. We want to see the town increase its involvement and commitment to the upkeep and improvement of Waveney. So I think that's an important consideration to keep in mind. Our benefactors want to see the town have skin in the game. Tiger, you can head on to the next slide. So this is a quick summary of the elements in our master plan, as well as an estimated cost range. And before I get into some of the details, I'll just give a little background on how our plan was developed. Beginning in late 2020, we hired Catherine Herman, who's a very well-regarded landscape architect, to help us develop a plan looking out over the next 5 years at Waveney to identify projects that we could undertake to help increase the beauty of the park and the usability of the park. And we also joined her efforts by going out and soliciting comments from a number of constituencies in town to get their suggestions for projects and their comments on what was working well and what could be improved within the park. And those elements were all combined into what we're calling our master plan. And as you can see here, most of the elements are spelled out. You should all have a copy of the detailed master plan document. And in fact, I think it was presented last year to the Park and Recs Committee by our former chairman. But if you have any questions regarding the specifics of these plan elements, I would be happy to answer those, but some of those again are spoken to in the detailed plan. But just succinctly, the plan envisions beautifying the South Avenue entrance. It envisions a project to replant with native species the basically strip of land butting the driveway coming up from South Avenue in between the driveway and the walking path up to the mansion. The plan envisions beautifying some of the parking and utility areas nearby the mansion house. It anticipates doing additional landscaping primarily towards the back of the home and some of the adjacent gardens. It anticipates giving support to better landscape some of the outbuildings and adjacent structures. And we're talking primarily about the area around the Powerhouse Theater and Carriage Barn there. It envisions a plan to come up with different mowing patterns within the fields to make some of those more attractive, and then to also beautify the Lapham Road entrance. And then there's a separate project which is much, much larger, and that's listed here as item G, which is called the Woodland Trails or Sound Remediation Project. And I like to actually call this the Merritt Parkway Trail Project. And what this project envisions is not only improving the actual structure of the trail that goes along the Merritt Parkway, but more importantly, finding a way to attenuate the sight and sound of the Merritt Parkway. And if any of you, and I'm sure many of you have, walked that trail or run that trail, you'll know that you see the Merritt Parkway quite a bit and that you hear the Merritt Parkway, and that a great deal of that sound actually infuses back into the park. This is obviously, as you can tell from the pricing here, a very large scale project. The pricing here envisions to a large extent using earthen berms to create a buffer between the Merritt and the trail. I believe that there are likely less expensive options to achieve some of those same outcomes, but the bottom line is that we are going to have to do some considerable engineering studies and other research to develop more precise options for how we could address some of those issues. And no matter how you slice it at the end, it's probably going to be a big project, but we won't know for sure exactly what our options are until we do more research. So again, this is a summary of the major elements within our master plan. And Tiger, I'm ready to move on to the next slide. So I should have added that, as you could see, there are some expensive elements in that plan. And that leads to the request that we're going to make, which is that we are asking the town of New Canaan to include a minimum of $300,000 in the Parks Department capital budget that would be dedicated and recurring on an annual basis. And we are committing, if that's done, to contribute a minimum of $250,000 per annum towards capital projects from our own funds in the park. And we would also anticipate having to fund at least $45,000 to $50,000 in incremental maintenance per annum to maintain some of the projects that have been completed to date and some of the projects that will be completed in the future. As we do now, we would fully anticipate that for every one of those projects, even if the town did allocate a specific amount of capital to be spent on Waveny every year, that those projects would all have to be approved by the appropriate town personnel and town bodies. Now, recurring funding at a $300,000 per year level will accomplish several things. It will enable us to significantly accelerate completion of a number of the projects that are outlined in the master plan. It will streamline the approval processes and reduce the cycle times in launching some of the new projects. It will help defray some of the burden that we have for not only our administrative costs and increasing maintenance needs. And then finally, it will demonstrate town commitment to patrons and key benefactors. Tiger, you can move on to the next slide if you want. This is a budget projection and cash reconciliation of what we think the next 5 years will look like. I will caution that this is a rough effort, and I would expect that some of these numbers will change and possibly some of the priorities implied here will change, but directionally, I think it's correct. And I'll just point out a few things on this slide. As you can see, with the ARPA funds that have already been granted, and if town recurring funds in the order of $300,000 per year are granted to the Conservancy, we would expect to have revenues that over the next 5 years probably average $700,000 to $750,000 per annum. Right now, if the town grants our request, not only will we be able to complete our existing projects, which we would be able to complete in any event, even if this funding wasn't granted, but we will be able to get a fairly rapid start on completing projects A through F and H on the master plan. And we think that we could conceivably complete all of those projects within the next 3 years, which would have a transformational impact on the appearance of the park. And then finally, you'll see the Woodlands Trails engineering study. We would anticipate that over the next 3 years, we would probably spend on the order of $50,000 a year to do surveys, engineering studies, and other forms of research to see how we can develop some project options for remediating the sight and sound of the Merritt Parkway along the Merritt Parkway Trail. And while there aren't any expenses built in year 25 and 26 for capital projects, we would anticipate that by 24, we would be in a position to select some options to launch the Merritt Parkway Trail project. And so, in fact, there would probably be actually pretty heavy expenses in both of those years. So that cash buildup that you see at the bottom of the page would actually be reduced substantially. And that sort of concludes my formal presentation. I would just summarize by saying we would respectfully ask the Parks and Rec Committee or Commission to support the allocation of $300,000 per annum to Waveney Park improvements through the Park and Rec budget. We're confident that we have a well-vetted list of projects that will absorb these funds effectively, and we're committed to working with the town to contribute financially in a very meaningful way to those efforts. And finally, we think that these efforts will have a transformational impact on the park, and we think they're going to be extremely well received by a very large number of town residents. So that concludes my formal presentation, and now I'm happy to take any questions you have.
Hey, Steve, it's Rana. I know you mentioned on that last tab, I'm sorry, Tiger, the last one you mentioned about with the 300,000 annual recurring from the town, there'd be 50K in capital a year by Waveney Park Conservancy, which I saw, which I didn't see, but I did see the 45 to 50 for OpEx per year. Can you show me where the 50, what is it? Tiger, can you pull up that last sheet?
Rana, if you take a look at the line under revenues and sources of cash, donations, event, and grant revenue.
Yep.
Those are monies that the Waveney Park Conservancy would anticipate raising. In fact, those are sort of minimums that we would expect to raise.
Okay.
So that contributes to the completion of the capital budgets, as well as funding our maintenance, the incremental maintenance expenses that we anticipate will be incurred on some of the projects that we're undertaking. And it also helps ensure that we have enough to just cover our operating and administrative costs.
Got it. So you would then guarantee at least a minimum of 295 then in there to get the 300. Is that what you're saying? I know you've got 325 and 365 and it grows year over year, but is there a minimum that you're guaranteeing?
Well, what we're saying is that we will guarantee in effect that we will put forward 250,000 of our cash will go towards capital budgets.
Okay.
And then we're also anticipating that we're going to have to use probably at least $45,000 to $50,000 of our cash to cover maintenance. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of what that is. This year, 2020, I already know that to perform certain maintenance practices on Genium Meadow, we've already got a firm quote for about $28,000. And we have told the Clarkson family or the Genium Foundation that if they're going to put up approximately $90,000 towards the completion of the meadow, that we'll handle the maintenance this year as a form of goodwill. So call that $30,000. Then the new plantings around Anderson Pond, we've received a quote there to weed those beds, to sort of mow around them, to apply deer repellent and whatnot. That's going to be about $15,000. So that's $45,000 in incremental maintenance right there that we anticipate having to cover to make sure things look up to snuff. And there may be other things as well. I mean, periodically we will hire landscapers to go in and weed and prune and things of that nature. Sometimes we do some of the window boxes at the Waveny house. So they're sort of the 45 to 50 is probably a minimum, and it well could be more than that.
Gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Tiger. That's good.
Hey, before you take that slide down, Steve, this is Kevin.
Yeah.
I'd like to, I hadn't seen this before. The town recurring matching funds we're currently in 22, and there's not going to be any $300,000 for the current year, obviously, but the ARPA funds have been appropriated already. So that's
the ARPA funds. My understanding, Kevin, and maybe I'm wrong, is that with the new fiscal year, that towards the end of the year, 300,000 could become available.
Tiger, has there been discussion about that? I mean, the fiscal year budget is done for this year.
Well, I know that, but I'm talking about the new fiscal year. So this is a calendar year basis. It's not based on the fiscal year basis.
Okay, well, all right. So the $300,000 for the 23 budget starting after July 1st.
Right.
All right, I got it.
A question for Stephen. Thank you for the excellent presentation. Very thorough and rather illuminating. In terms of Park and Rec's role here, do we make a formal motion to say we recommend 300,000? I understand that has to go to Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen. There's a whole approval. We can't necessarily approve it ourselves. But what would you like from us here tonight?
Well, that may be more of a question for Tiger and Kevin. My understanding is that at the end of the day, they're the guys that have to sort of put this in the budget request. And so I think formally that's how it works, but just on an informal basis, we'd obviously love to have the commissioner's support for this, and a little moral support in terms of saying, we think this is a good idea for the town to make this kind of commitment.
I have a question.
Yeah, hi, Gene.
Yeah, it's a very lengthy presentation, and that's not a criticism. It's a fact-filled one, and there's lots to absorb here, and there's lots of details. My one question right now would be, and perhaps it was covered, I said there's been a lot of detail presented here, and it's moving along quickly. What would the total ongoing maintenance cost for all these projects that have been implemented be? You've just touched on some of them, but I suspect there are trail maintenances, the new gravels that have to be replaced now and then from washouts, et cetera, et cetera. Is there some summation of the totality of maybe the burns need to be landscaped now? And I have no idea. Is there some totality of the additional maintenance costs on an annual basis far out into the future every year that all this entails?
I can't answer for every individual project that is anticipated. Some of that we're going to have to discover, and sometimes the maintenance on some of these tends to be higher in the early years and then lower as they sort of fill in, if you will. One thing that's important to remember is that right now the town does what I call the routine maintenance of the parklands of Waveny. So they take care of the mowing. If there's a storm and there has to be debris cleanup, they'll typically take care of that. There are some funds allocated each year to wall maintenance. Typically, they're doing some maintenance on the trails. So if you get a washout in a storm, they're doing some repairs there. What I'm talking about in terms of what we're paying for is we've noticed that sometimes on what I call finer maintenance, that the town is not well equipped to do some of that, pruning, gardening, although Kevin has helped bring on board someone that's going to be doing that around the house, which will be very helpful. And for some of these new projects, again, the town just wasn't anticipating doing the maintenance. And in fact, I think they rightfully were looking to the Conservancy to say, if you do these projects, we want you to do some of the lion's share of the maintenance. And so I would anticipate that maintenance line item, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be, but as we undertake some of these projects, I would anticipate that there will be some more maintenance. And I would anticipate that we would handle a significant share of that. But at some point in the future, it may be that the town needs to do that as well. Now, if we accomplish some of these capital projects, at some point, we're going to have sort of hit most of the projects quite well, I think. And so the amount of money that needs to be allocated towards capital improvements can be dialed back, and monies that are required for maintenance can potentially be dialed up.
Okay. Having been on the Board of Ed, I know that, and that's a different situation, that oftentimes, even though they're large expenses, the capital expenses pale compared to the ongoing operational expenses. And again, this is different. We have staff on the Board of Ed and teachers. And by the way, I'm not currently on the Board of Ed, but I've always made me much more sensitive to what are the ongoing costs after the project is, quote, built. But thank you.
Well, and I'll make one other comment, which is that I think one of our learnings, and maybe this should be on the learnings page, is that as we undertake some of these projects, I think it's imperative for us to, at the outset, try to develop a detailed understanding of what the maintenance is likely to be, so that as we lay out budgets and funding, we don't enter into anything without understanding what the ongoing maintenance requirements are and have a plan for that.
Thank you.
Yes, all I would say, or all I've noted, is I've looked at our capital budget and what we had proposed, and then what we eventually get approved and all that. It seems like it's pretty. What you're saying, that 300K is pretty close to what we've had in our proposed budgets, not what we've had approved, but it's pretty much just running with what we, at least for this last fiscal year, what we had in there, correct? Tiger and John?
We didn't have it. We haven't had any monies.
Number. Yeah.
We haven't had any monies.
Jack, that's for other parks maintenance or capital projects.
Okay, so the number I saw there is for something else.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's why this is a first time ask, just like the Athletic Foundation has $300,000 a year for their next 5-year projects. The Board of Finance is being asked to commit to that, which was not the original deal with Waveny Conservancy.
Okay.
And by the way,
So historical capital expenditure is not what we should be comparing this to. This is a marginal extra capital expenditure for these projects only.
I wouldn't use the word marginal, but
yeah.
Incremental.
Go ahead, Hank.
This is a question.
Actually, could I make one quick point on that? This is incremental spending, but I don't want to imply that the town has not put any money into capital projects in the past. As you can see from that one table, it has. What we're trying to do in part here, I think the difference though is that each one of those projects, we'd have to bring it to the Board of Finance and say, we want to scoop out Anderson Pond or something like this. We want the town to join on doing this. And that distinct project would get approved and those monies would get allocated for that. What we're suggesting now is that instead of on a project by project basis, we just simply like a allocation of money dedicated to capital improvements at Waveny Park that we can draw on as we do these projects without having to go to Board of Finance and get a specific appropriation each time. Now, we still anticipate that Parks and Rec and other town officials will need to provide the sign off on drawing from that pool of capital, but it will streamline the way that we're able to undertake some of these projects, provide more certainty as to what funds are going to be available, and allow us to move more quickly on some of these. And also, in total, this will amount to more than the town over the last 5 years has been typically granting to capital improvements within the park.
Hank, go ahead.
This question is for Tiger. Tiger, if the town honors this request for funding, realistically, would this detract from the funding of other New Canaan parks going forward, or is it just really totally separate?
It's a great question. I think it would be considered totally separate. The last year we had a $300,000 marker in for the NCAF and the Board of Finance and the Town Council, the Board of Selectmen first, but then the Board of Finance and the Town Council all understood that this was a separate request, and it didn't. They didn't say, "Oh, well, we gave you 300 for the NCAF, so we're going to take 300 out from everywhere else." Right? They didn't cap us. Let's put it that way. So I don't think they would do the exact same here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keith, go ahead. And then Steve Haverstraw.
Stephen, you're asking for like us to kind of have a motion expressing our support. Is it more important to you that we say the support for the concept or support for the concept, including the number 300,000? Could we just vote for a motion to support the concept and kind of leave the dollar amount for the, for the finance group?
I'm happy with the latter, just endorsing the concept. And in fact, I don't even know if you need to, if this requires an endorsement. I think that would be nice. Part of this is to inform you what we've been asking of the Board of Finance. But certainly having your support for the concept at the very least would I think be helpful.
Thank you.
Ron, I would say, we've already planned to put $250,000 a year in the Board of Selectmen budget. And so I would welcome a endorsement by the commission.
Thank you. Steve Haverstraw.
I'm in favor of this. And Stephen, good to see you. Thank you for the presentation.
Steve?
Question on how this, obviously on a project by project basis, I mean, that feels clunky and does not feel efficient to me. So I think this would certainly smooth some things out. But in practice, if there was a larger project, do you have to spend that 300 every year? I know that the first several years, you clearly have ideas for it, but if it's not spent in the fiscal year, for instance, is that gone?
No, I believe it can roll over.
Yeah, the capital expenditure will stay for 2 years.
2 years.
And then it goes back to the Board of Finance for reappropriation. We do that annually with all of our capital expenditures that are either, if they're due to expire and we have monies in that we'd like to spend, we ask them to be carried. If not, we tell them that they can close it, and then those monies roll back into the general fund. So
for the larger projects, there's a mechanism to have it roll over. And then how would the process work? The Conservancy would make a recommendation for this year. Here's what we'd like the funds to go towards, but ultimately the town has the say.
Well, the way I would envision it, and Tiger and Kevin weigh in if you envision this differently, is that as we do now, we identify projects. Typically, we get various experts, landscape designers, et cetera, to come up with very thorough sort of specifications and plans for the projects. And then my anticipation would be that we would work with Tiger, probably come up with some firm estimates from potential contractors. And we would probably be back and forth to Parks and Rec to say, all right, are you supportive of undertaking this? This is what we have in mind. As we do with most projects right now, we would come to you and say, are you supportive of this? And then if you were, and you give it your approval, then we've got a green light to go. But Kevin and Tiger, you may have some different ideas. We actually haven't had a detailed conversation about exactly how the approval process would work, but that's the way I would that's the way I guess I've been envisioning it.
Yeah, Steve, as we discussed, we will amend the MOU.
Yeah,
and we will discuss that. I would like to clarify one thing that perhaps wasn't apparent. We've been dedicating $50,000 to $75,000 a year to trails, and that's where the town money was coming from, plus the money we've had for walls around Waveny Mansion. So we've always done the hardscape surrounding projects. So that's where the almost $600,000 comes from over the past 5 years. It's not as though we haven't been funding, but it was in the categories of trails and hardscape for the walls. And we still have wall work to do around the mansion. So we're going to be doing things apart from matching Conservancy projects as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Anyone on the commission? And Steve Haberstraw, similarly, we did that with the funds for the pickleball. Remember, the funds weren't spent. Tiger went back in front. So it's kind of similar process for the funds not spent.
Yep, I remember it well.
Great. If there are no other hands or questions, do we have a motion to support the Waveny Park Conservancy request for $300,000 annual on a recurring basis? George was up first. I think I saw Keith Ritchie second. Do I have anyone opposed? Just check my other screen. None. All in favor? Congrats, Steve. You have our
Great.
support. That was unanimous.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody. Thanks for all the work you do as well.
Take care. Congrats.
Have a good evening.
All right, next up on the agenda is the Greenwich Wine and Food Festival. It's a Waveney Park request. We have several people on tonight, but those that are presenting, Margot Brady and Suni Unger. Do I have that correct? You're welcome to unmute. The floor is yours. And do you need a screen shared, Suni or Margot?
That would be great, actually. I think Beth could share it if that's okay.
So let's see, where is Beth? Beth. Do you see her, Francesca, in order to share? Nope. There we go. Great.
Great. Well, my name is spelled Suni, but it's actually pronounced Sunny. It's a little tricky. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for seeing us tonight, and we're looking forward to this open conversation. I don't know how much you guys know about us. I'm the founder of Unger Publishing, and we actually own Serendipity Magazine. So we work with a lot of the New Canaan businesses, everyone from Carp Associates to, oh gosh, all the restaurants, and Shoes and More. They're just, we've had a wonderful time working with a lot of the small to big businesses in New Canaan. I'm actually a former New Canaan resident. I used to own Silver Mine Market and lived over there. So I've been looking forward to being able to present something to you all, just knowing Waveney Park so well from so many years ago. Anyway, we obviously we own the Greenwich Wine and Food. Let me just start with saying if the Greenwich part was the location. We do hold events throughout the year. So obviously, if we are able to host an event with you all, it would not, everything is changing to Serendipity Wine and Food. And of course, we would advertise or attach the New Canaan town with it as well. Our mission for this festival has always been about giving back. All our business ventures, including the magazine, they all give back. We work with the Mountain Troops. We work with a lot of nonprofits. We work with New Canaan Library. But that is really the basis of our business. The Wine and Food Festival, we have supported so many charities over the years: Hole in the Wall, Gang Camp, Breast Cancer Alliance. Over the last 10 years, we've raised over $1 million through these events for the charities. We have a permanent partnership, which we're thrilled with. We're working with both our Connecticut-based Jacques Penn and his foundation, and he's right here in Madison, Connecticut. And also Michelle Nichon, his nonprofit called Wholesome Wave. And I know he's neighboring, he's right there in Westport. So all profits do go to these two charities. Basically, we also, I should mention also throughout the year, we partner with about 250 businesses throughout these different events. And obviously that's super important, but they're everything from small restaurants to our bigger partners include PepsiCo, Jeep, and many other great, but local, which is key, sponsors. For those of you who don't know it or haven't attended, We bring together the leaders of the culinary industry, people like Rachel Ray, obviously Jacques Penn and Michelle Nishan bring in a lot of celebrity chefs that are very eager to raise funds for these two important organizations. It obviously draws a lot of attention as well, and that's some of the guests' favorite parts of the weekend. But we also, obviously we feature all the local restaurants, which is super important at this time with everything that they've been through for the last couple of years, as well as obviously renowned musical performers. But generally what we do is we do a lot of small events throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, we generally do a bigger weekend. Obviously things have changed, which we're kind of excited about, to tell you the truth. At one point we were hosting about 8,000 people down at Roger Sherman Baldwin Park in Greenwich. We are not looking to do that anymore. We obviously, with COVID and everything else, we are changing quite a bit up. We are still bringing in all the talent. They're all ready to go, but we would prefer to host an event that is three days, Friday evening, Saturday evening, and Sunday evening, that only has 600 people on each day. Again, just knowing Waveney Park and just knowing it's actually very center for our attendees. We draw a huge amount from Bedford, New Canaan, Darien, Westport, and of course Greenwich. But that's really our core area. And then there are a lot of people, I don't know with it scaling back in size, but we do draw a lot of national attention, mostly because of the chefs. So people do fly in, they do stay at hotels, they do spend the weekend. And in the past, this has really contributed to the towns that we've had them in. We have just a lot, obviously a lot more, a lot of businesses saw the attraction of people in town and people coming. It's only, depending on which day, it's only a small part of the day. So we encourage everyone to go visit the towns and, to check out, obviously the hotels, but also just the local shopping. Let's see, what else? We do a lot of advertising for this event. We do a lot of promotion. We have a lot of terrific partners throughout all of the towns. This again has brought in a lot of exposure for the towns. You take a look at our sponsors. We probably have about 6 or 7 real estate sponsors alone, mostly because it does attract so many people to the town that they get really excited to be a part of it. It's a great audience. And you can see from the slides, we've got 2 stages, small stages, where we do cooking shows, really educates everybody on what's new, what's healthy, what's fun. The chefs all play off of each other, which is a lot of fun. And most of the local people that are emceeing for us, people like Lara Spencer, Harry Connick was involved at one point. They all come out and support each other, and they love to spend this time with these chefs. And it's a really exciting and fun weekend. We get some really extensive vintners that come out from California. Diageo is a big sponsor, and they like to show off anything from their newest scotch to private events throughout the year, but also there as well. Let's see. Again, this will be our 10th year. So we are very well run. We have Beth, who's actually on the call. She and her team have overseen it for probably 7 out of the 10 years. They also oversee events throughout the country. So they are very good at what they do. And we always work very closely with the towns. You know, we've had some, we work with the Westport Farmers Market. So we've had some events over there. We work very well with their police department, fire department, obviously in Greenwich and Old Greenwich, Coscob and Greenwich. And, you know, through this event, I know in the title, it's wine and food, but we really have not had any problems with people being overserved. We're very careful with all of that. The crowd is playing for a very elevated ticket. So we get a pretty good audience that is really just really good foodies or, you know, want to see some terrific music. And so we were interested in coming and, you know, hoping that you guys would be interested in hosting this at Waveny. And I know we had spoken to Rona about possibly that last weekend in October. I think it's October 29th and 30th. And so that is, I think that's everything about us. I'm sure I've missed something that my team will eventually mention, but that's our excitement.
Sunny, can you talk about how many people? And I know you said a few hours here and there, and how many stages, like what areas?
Sure. Beth, can you throw up, there's
a
a page with all of it on there. Let's see if she can find that one. But generally, so Friday night, it is, you know, each, there we go. Okay. So this is just a working layout. We kind of, you know, obviously it'll depend on, we used to do it 6 acres. This is now obviously much smaller. This is roughly just 40,000 square feet. Again, we have really wanted to scale this down and make it a truly VIP, you know, experience, COVID friendly. You know, hopefully everything's great in October, but we have to be still obviously very careful. So everything that we set up on here is people are able to sit the 5 feet apart, things like that we just, you know, have to be super careful with. We work with the health department in every single town just to go through the plans to make sure everything is perfect. And obviously that is constantly changing, which is, again, Beth's team is super professional. We have done everything from popping up, you know, plastic in between the chefs and the people to you name it. So we do get it. But this is kind of a rough, this is the kind of thing, obviously it can move depending on the space. But you can see there is one main tent that has a stage and all the tables and the seatings. And then you can see in front of that, it's so hard because it's kind of upside down, but the in front is the main area. Hopefully could be open air, but can be tented as well. Again, we host, gosh, so many businesses that come in and kind of teach you about what they're doing. It doesn't have to be culinary related. So you'll see the vendor tent and so on. And then the 2 tents on either side that are demo tents. And essentially those are stages. We partner with GE and culinary, oh gosh, spacing on our small appliances, but they're very close with Jacques Penn and support his foundation. And then there's obviously, you can see we put in the sanitation tents, only because we've done this for so long, the prep tents, the trailer restrooms, and just everything that's in there. We're looking for Friday night. I think it was roughly from 5, we didn't know your curfews. Greenwich has a curfew of 10:30, so we had written 5:30 to 10:30, but again, I don't know what your curfews are, especially with sound and things like that. Saturday, generally, it's 3:30 to 10:30 or 3:30 to 10. And Sunday, it is a brunch fun, and that generally, I think it said 11:30 to maybe 3:30. It's on one of these slides, but I'm not sure which one.
And just the amount of people you're expecting over the 3-day period?
600 at each. We just really need to, again, just be aware of where we are today and being careful.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission at this time? And if you want to bring down the presentation, just so we can see the commissioners' questions, Beth, that'd be great. Thank you. Jack.
Are there any conflicts with the dates?
B, are there any conflicts? I know that Tucker mentioned the 30th, or Caffeine and Carburetors mentioned the 30th as an option, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. So, and I think someone else, maybe it was John Howe, or I'm sorry, Steve Dayton, that mentioned the track meet, right? Was that the last cross-country running or something event? Was that the 30th?
That's the middle of the month.
Okay, all right.
Okay, as far as I know, for that weekend, there's maybe one day available. I did respond to the dates. I didn't keep a record with me for tonight, but I don't believe those dates are available.
They were initially available when we were talking about it. Hi, sorry to jump in, but I think when you responded, B, I think it was just one of the dates at the Waveny house that you said was not available, but we were under the impression that that weekend was still available, as well as the first weekend in November. If that has changed, we're open to other weekends in the fall.
Yeah, I did respond, I believe yesterday or today, and asked if you had some other dates you would consider. But I think what we had originally spoken about, we have some weddings and other things going on, yes, at the house. I'm not aware that we can do two things, have a tented event as well as a wedding. I don't think that's doable, but not my call.
I have a question. It's not clear, your layout, it was 40,000 square feet, which is basically an acre. It's not clear whether it's one giant tent, whether it's a tent combined with Waveny. In fact, we were just talking about that. Would you require the taking over the Waveny house as well as having a tent? Where would the tent be located? Could you give us some information about the physical layout, not the activities within that, but where is it? And is it all tented? Whatever, please.
So we weren't able to get a hold of what our options are. That's what we were coming here for tonight. I kind of took a Google look at it from space to try to see where we could fit the maneuver all the different tents. But absolutely we can, I think it's very important during any time of the year that the tents are obviously an option. We've been fortunate for years to not have rain, so I'm kind of waiting for that day to come. But in the diagram, if you'll see, there's all the different tents in there, minus the center area. They all have the sizing of the tent next to it, minus the big tent, which is 100 by 120. I think it's on there, but I'm not 100%. So it's all those little rectangular things are it. We would love to know what our options are. I've catered 1 million events back in the day when I lived in New Canaan at the house, and it was wonderful, but we just weren't sure what our options are. So we're open to, taking a look.
Hank, go ahead. And then Keith.
Okay. How does New Canaan or Waveny Park benefit from this particular 3-day event?
It's a good question. I mean, to be honest, the Greenwich town has loved it for 10 years. It brought a lot of business to them, to be honest. We booked all the hotels in the surrounding area. Obviously, it was a lot more people. And during this time, we just don't want to host that many people. But it brings a lot of views to the actual towns. The amount of advertising that we do, we work with the Today Show, we work with Martha Stewart Living. It just gives a real good highlight of the town. And obviously, we're raising a lot of good money for, 2 very good organizations. So I would say that is why. I mean, we generally have a lot. the towns generally ask us to do it. I know. Yeah, so yeah, everyone's been kind of interested in hosting it.
Would there be any financial outlay from the town?
Oh, I'm sorry. What do you mean?
Like, would you be requesting anything of the town for funding?
No. We're
And would your
totally
event
funded.
pay for security or police that would be required for traffic?
No, we would pay for all of that.
Keith, I'm sorry, you had questions.
Yeah, I'm new here, so I guess I just have some basic questions. This seemed like a commercial activity to me, Sonny, but then you said money goes to charitable causes. And what are the charitable causes?
Sure, there are two charitable causes. There's the Jacques Penn. He's an old-time amazing celebrity chef. So one goes to the Jacques Penn Foundation. I don't have the slide up. And he actually, what?
Oh, I just said and Wholesome Wave.
And Wholesome, yeah, I was going to try to just tell you a bit about the foundations. But anyway, it's,
sorry, if I can interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm Lisa Kennedy. I'm the editor and I work with, at Serendipity. Jacques Pepin's foundation works, they're both and Wholesome Wave are national foundations, and the Jacques Pepin Foundation works to take people who have not either have had not the best luck in life and have been incarcerated or just have not had opportunities presented to them, and gives them the opportunity to train and work in a kitchen and learn about a valuable trade to kind of give them that leg up in life. As well as helping other area chefs and restaurants. But it's really sort of about making the culinary industry available to a wider audience than is there may be. And Wholesome Wave is their big thing is providing nutritious food to those who are not as food secure as the rest of us. So they really are they work to develop programs to help those who aren't as food secure to have the most nutritious options available to them and healthy options. They have Wholesome Crave is their for-profit arm, which does create soups that you can get, and which they work with a number of corporate entities and big schools. But this is really just to raise awareness and raise funds to get nutritional options to schools that maybe might not have those available, et cetera. So those are the two, these are the two organizations we're partnering with. So there's a food component to it.
Okay, so I have a few follow-up questions. I hope you'll bear with me. So how much money then goes to these charitable activities, or is this really substantially a commercial activity?
Every dollar goes back to them, profit-wise.
Well, okay, I understand the profit, but what kind of, when you look at your revenue versus your overall cost, is like 10 million coming in and 9 million and 950,000 of expense, so there's just a little going to charity, or is it really significant?
It's pretty significant. We've raised over $1 million in the last 9 events.
In each one or altogether?
No, all together.
Okay. You said you would pay, I gather, for the police control, for the cleanup, set up the tents, taking down the tents, damage to the lawn, to anything that needs to be repaired. You mentioned people stay in the hotels. You're probably aware there's basically 1 or 2 hotels in New Canaan. So it's hardly like we're going to benefit from that.
Right.
And you said something about the name. Your name currently has Greenwich, is it? And I think you mentioned about maybe changing it, because it would be kind of strange to me if this were called the Greenwich, wine and cheese event. That seems to me they would get the benefit of the publicity, and it would kind of go by New Canaan.
Absolutely. So that's why we'd be changing that. We've done a couple of events in Westport and Norwalk. And so absolutely, it was always meant to be like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Aspen Wine and Food Festival. It was more meant to be a location. And so we have chefs that came to the Greenwich one from all over the place, but unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. So just knowing that the magazine, that's really, is serendipity and it's so well known. So we figured it's just an easy transition to switch that. We obviously would love to incorporate the town, if it's, Serendipity Wine and Food, New Canaan afterwards, so that people know that's where it's taking place.
And my last question is, why are you not just staying in Greenwich? Why are you coming to us now?
So we are, with the change of it, and it's not to say we're not going to be doing events in Greenwich. Our one of our main board of advisors is IC Franz, and so we have a huge tie to Greenwich, and we're very happy there. But the big changes of this event and making it so much smaller and more VIP, I think we thought it was a great time to find a new location, at least just for the fall. And obviously, again, I lived in New Canaan for almost 10 years, and I just think it's a great spot. We have a lot of attendees from Bedford, New Canaan, Darien, Westport. It's a nice central area. It's also beautiful. So it makes a lot of sense.
Would you entertain paying New Canaan a fee for the use of our facilities?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as long as it fits in our budget, I can run it by the charities, but yes, absolutely.
Have you been paying a fee to use the facilities in Greenwich?
No, but we get it. No, they obviously, especially for how big it was, they made up a lot of exceptions because they really wanted it. But, that doesn't mean it's just was what it is, but we're happy, to do anything, especially using a park. I'm a big supporter of park and recs all over the place, land trust, Audubon. So, I think I do a lot of charity work on that side. So that's could be another reason. We also just have again, a lot of people involved. But absolutely, that's, our whole purpose is to support and give back. That's what we do. So 100%.
Yeah. I mean, Sonny, I'm new here. It still seems, the activities I see that we have had have all been New Canaan activities. We mentioned, coffee and carburetors. It's very much of a New Canaan thing. We have different of our groups in town. They use our parks. But you really, I know you have some association with New Canaan, but this is really not a New Canaan organization. So anyhow,
no, it is not.
Thank you.
Sonny, can I ask you a couple questions? Is this a one-time event, or do you think this is going to be annual recurring?
We'd like it to be annual. We've got 6 chefs from your town that we work with full time. We'd like it to be annual. We'd like it to be a place, that holds at least this VIP, special event. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing too, and I just, based on what B just said recently, since the date has not been solidified yet, okay, I don't know as a commission if we can even vote tonight until we land on a date.
No, we knew that. We were just coming to present, just to feel the interest and see how you all felt.
George, if it would be all right, could I just jump in here for a minute? Something that I chair the TDAC, the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Committee for the town. Mm-hmm. And we have been involved in, now this is our 2nd year, with our October for Design event, which mimics the Palm Springs event. And it's gone extremely well. And the plan is for it to even be more high profile next year and bring in more. We had 20 people come from Palm Springs this year to take advantage of it and to go to the tour and that kind of thing. So it's these type of events that the TDAC commission or committee looks to really raise the profile of New Canaan. These are New Canaan businesses that work, that are part of this event. This isn't completely disassociated from New Canaan. There's a lot of New Canaan businesses that are part of this event in years past in Greenwich, these chefs of some of our restaurants. You know, we're a restaurant destination town right now. And so that's part of the connection, if you will.
So what are the New Canaan organizations that are involved?
No, restaurants.
Restaurants. What New Canaan restaurants are involved?
Nick Marchenko, right? Sunny, Elm
So
Restaurant.
Elm, Locali, Soul, South End on Cork, Back End. Obviously we work with the Carp Associates.
And then many
we even work with Shoes and More. I mean, we work with all of them.
Impressive. Okay.
So
And then we're big sponsors of Mountain Troops. We're big sponsors of the New Canaan Library.
Right. So this is really about economic development to help support the economy, local economies, as well as some local charities. Okay.
I actually know. I mean, while it is economic development, it's more of a marketing. It's more of an event that could just put New Canaan on the map, if you will. As you all know, we're looking at raising the profile of Waveny House and wedding events and things like that could take place there. So this is just something along those same lines.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, Sunny. So like you said a little bit ago, you're not really looking for approval right now. How much time would you need? So right now you don't really have dates yet. You don't have that stuff squared away yet. Could you come back to us in the future with dates, so that we know that, hey, here's the block. We don't know that we would know that there would not be any conflicts or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was under the understanding that weekend was free. To be honest, though, we were supposed to come and speak in December, and I wasn't feeling well. So, but yes, no, definitely. And I mean, we're looking at any weekend. But I think that's what we said last time, and I feel like that was the only weekend left. Is my only concern.
Mm-hmm. And it has to be a weekend?
Yeah, because so many people, it's the time the chefs really can get off and be able to do this. I mean, we literally have, oh gosh, probably 80 chefs serving a day. They come in and they show off all their different foods, and they dress up their booths so it looks like their restaurant. This year we got a couple of the food purveyors actually to pay for their food because it's been so hard on them. But yeah, they just struggle with the weekdays, and they're already having such a hard time with staffing. We're actually going to be helping supplement that. So it's just, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, because if it were the weekdays, it'd be a lot easier.
No, I know.
2 days in a row.
And these guys fly in, we have all those celebrity chefs you see on TV, because they're so Michelle Nichon, he was Paul Newman's right-hand man. It was his chef who opened, was at La Farm. So it's, they have these incredible pulls. So they actually fly in all their buddies and stuff. And, it's great. It's also hard because the ticket cost has to be pretty high to ensure that obviously they raise money.
So really right now, without anything else, I mean, there's not much we can do until you have a date, until you have dates.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a good conversation and all that, but yeah. All right, thank you.
Bill Cap, you had a question, sorry.
Hi, Rona, thank you. Hi, Commission. I just wanted to speak specifically just about the park itself and caution the Commission to consider that this could have a potential great impact on the park grounds. Should it rain that day? Should it have rained the day before, when we think about the tents and the stages and the parking and the tables and seating and all that? Be prepared to discuss that, because that is a major issue, and that is just specifically talking about the park itself.
Mm-hmm.
So we have had those circumstances in the past. Beth's team oversees that, obviously, because I'm a big part of Greenwich Park and Recs. I mean, obviously, you know, we did have to we did about a 5x5 space last year. There were 2 or 3 years ago when pre all this pandemic, but to tell you the truth, we're really, really careful. We work with solid teams that are extremely careful and understand. To be honest, I stand out there with my father overseeing to make sure that, again, nothing is hurt. So I completely understand that. And we could give you, I think we already have it, kind of a play-by-play, what happens if it rains, what happens, you know, we watched the weather like crazy a month out, which is so silly, but I totally understand and respect that. And we would give you an exact, again, play-by-play. If it was cold, you know, obviously it's cold, it's okay. But if it rains and things like that, along with, you know, tents and things like that. And the stages are very, they're not, you know, it's no more than a stage, you know, than a wedding, you know, band stage, in the sense of would not hurt. We'd be very careful. But again, we can put this, it's one thing to say, it's another thing to actually show you on paper.
Go ahead, Francesca, and then Steve Haverstraw.
Hi, I had a question about how did it work with COVID last year?
So we didn't do it. We actually haven't had, we did not have it in 2020 nor in 2021.
And when would you call that, you know, that you're going to have to cancel the event because the pandemic has got a new strain, you know?
Yeah. So we have to, I mean, the last one we did the full, I mean, all the way down to, you know, I mean, it was crazy all the way up to it. But you know, we were one of the few, we probably overjumped it last fall and canceled. But it's just not something, I mean, the restaurants are already having so many issues with keeping staffing. You know, again, we take great pride in this event being a success for almost 10 years. We just can't risk it. But we did, you know, the good thing is that we do work with all the health departments. And we were working on the most recent one, we were working with the Stanford, Westport, and Greenwich to figure out how to even put up the glass in between so that you could still see the chefs working and how people would sit and stuff like that. So, you know, we have designed this event that if we had to go down by 50% capacity, that, you know, if it, you know, we would probably break even, and the charities are fine with the exposure. They just really want to get out. I can't tell you how many notes we get from the restaurants and the businesses of, when are you coming back? We have to get in front of the people. They don't know my restaurant's still, you know, here. It's hard. It's really hard.
I believe last year we made the call about 45 days out. It was, and that was a pretty standard practice in the past year, just to get a good pulse on, you know, what was happening in the world, COVID cases, things like that. So that was the mark that we used last year.
Our national sponsors are pretty good about it too. They completely understood and supported, and, you know, they're all local. You know, PepsiCo is here, Anheuser-Busch is here, Diageo is here, Compass is here, you know, so they all get it and they really want to protect their community. So nobody pushes it, which is great.
So George, for pushing ahead, I'm assuming the best bet here, Sunny and Beth and Margot, since you guys don't have a date, is working with B to see if there are any available weekends. And then I would assume from there, George, they would work with Tucker on the special events committee to see if it's any kind of conflicts with the other things going on, meaning high school and whatever, and parking. And then they come back in February.
That's what I was going to recommend as well, is that we have to table this to February 9th until we can get some weigh-in from B as to availability, and then the special events group. Yeah, a good point, Ronna. Thank you.
And then maybe suggest to you ladies that you kind of narrow down, if there is a weekend, where you want this to be, whether it be walking the parks, whether it be with one of the park recs or representatives or something, just so you've narrowed down where it might be. It'll be crucial for this commission to understand exactly where, and then where the parking is, where the tents are, where the bathrooms are. So I would just preemptively tell you to be prepared for exact answers, so we're better able to, tell you yes or no.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anything else from the
Thank you.
commission? No. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you for being so patient. Next on the agenda, I know that Steve Benko is out tonight, is the rec director's report. I don't know if Steve Dayton or Bill Kapp, if you have anything you'd like to cover.
I do. I have, I spoke to Steve today and he's sorry he couldn't be here tonight. Just in quick review of the fall and winter, that we have a successful return to our very popular before and after school programs, which are held at 3 elementary schools, East, West, and South. We have solid enrollment right now in guitar, karate, and paddle tennis clinics, which is typical. And we're looking forward to a return of our special events and many of our popular summer and spring programs. And that's really all I have to tell you at this time.
Thank you, Bill. Steve Dayton, you have any updates? Let's see if he's still on.
No, Bill covered most of it, so
Great.
that's fine.
Great. Thank you so much. Great. Next item on the agenda, John Howe, Park Superintendent's Report.
Yes, I'll be brief. Very simply, next week we go in front of the Board of Selectmen for our budgets. So that's all set. We were able to get into the disc golf area and remove some of the logs and brush that was pushed over to the side. And we will hopefully, if the weather cooperates, we'll be working on some benches. We need to bring them in, pressure wash them and let them dry and then treat them. But it's that time of the year where we're dealing with snow more than anything. It's not just the day of the snowstorm to clean up. It's, salting and everything for days afterwards. With that said, we are going to be keeping Dunning clean of snow for casual use. It's not going to be any formal programs out there or anything like that this time of year. But if somebody wants to go and throw a ball around or do a little bit of workouts, that Dunning will be kept open a day or two after each snowstorm. So other than that, anybody has any questions? That's all I've got.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. All right. I don't see any hands. The last item is the chairman's report. I would just sign out by saying Planet New Canaan, and I know George was going to give an update on the Christmas tree sales for the Exchange Club, but I wanted to just at the end here with Planet New Canaan give some good news that of those Christmas trees that were taken to the Waveny pool area, there were 648 trees collected between January 1st and January 9th. That's incredible. And those were mulched and are in various places. So hats off to them. And George, you were going to mention how tree sales went.
Yeah, thanks, Ronnie. Yeah, the tree sales this year with the Exchange Club went extremely well. We sold close to about 1,900 trees. Net revenue obviously is being determined right now. But I would suspect that we will give out about $165,000 in terms of grants to different local charities in and around the greater Fairfield County area. We really thank John, Steve, Bill Kapp for their enormous support, the use of Kiwanis. And I think it went extremely well. We're very appreciative for the town support as well as all the volunteers that made it happen.
Excellent. That's great. Congrats to everybody involved. It's a heck of a program all the way around, from selling to reusing. And with that, I will ask if there is a motion to dismiss.
No,
Sorry.
I'm sorry to be the new guy, but I got from you one of the Park and Rec subcommittees.
Yes.
Of which I'm on a couple. Would you mind telling me, and maybe it's useful for others too, what do these subcommittees do? What is their responsibility that goes with that?
It's an annual update of various things. It could be an annual update on the swimming pool and how swimming pool passes were sold and how many were families, how many were nanny passes. Is there any work that was done on the pool? How was the season? It's sort of a recap of everything. Then you could look at something like Nature Center, which is coming up in February, and you would look at what capital programs they've done. How's their daycare program going? How is, what's the latest event? Was there the tree sap or syrup or their fall festival? So it's sort of a recap of those parks and activities in New Canaan. And so we kind of divvy up who's on which subcommittee and pick various months that work. You wouldn't give a pool update in the middle of July because you're sort of in the middle of the season.
So for like the powerhouse, would we be expected, talk to the people that are running the powerhouse and just go and see what their plans are? And same thing with the carriage barn, talk to the art society.
Exactly.
Okay.
Most definitely. And I'm happy to help you with that along the way if there's one. And there may be changes. I mean, I think George would have his prerogative on where the subcommittees are and which month and who's on them. He has the list. So I would just reserve that, right for him to change it. But if there's questions, let me know. And you can always look at previous meeting minutes to see what updates were given in previous years. They're pretty helpful.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Steve.
I'd like to make a motion to say thank you, Rana.
Very welcome.
Nobody on this on the screen spends more time than you have been. You've been a great leader, and thank you.
You bet. My pleasure.
I know you're not going anywhere, so I'll say it again.
I know. I'm here. I'm here until the end of the year. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Motion to dismiss. Anyone want to raise their hand first? Thank you, Francesca. Second was Hank. I don't think anyone's opposed. It's a late night. All in favor, and good night, everybody. Thanks for your help.
Happy New Year, everybody.
And good night.
Happy New Year.
Stop recording.
Good night, Francesca.
Good night. I'm wondering if I should hit stop recording, or I guess it just does that automatically.
Oh,
Oh,
that
there
I'm
it
not
is.
sure.
There.